The ship was a coffin drifting between dead moons, its hull scarred with the radiation burns of 1,000 years. It had no transponder, no heat signature, and certainly no reason to be there. But the scavenger crew of the Velix Mara hadn't survived this long in the mid-black by ignoring such ghost signals. Captain Hrax, a bulbous, four-eyed Threxian with breath like burn ozone, squinted at the derelict on the screen and muttered, "It's human tech. Old. Real old." That alone should have been enough to leave. Human relics were taboo. Cursed, some said. The Accord paid handsomely to keep their memory erased, and any ship broadcasting human design was supposed to be incinerated on site. But the scavengers were broke, 2 weeks from oxygen rationing, and greed had always outvoted superstition in these sectors. They docked. Inside, the silence was so complete it felt hostile. The corridors were dark, lined with metal panels etched in a script none of them could read. Dustless. Preserved. Too preserved. At the ship's core, past collapsed bulkheads and flickering grav stabilizers, they found it, a chamber bathed in cold blue light. At its center stood a stasis pod, humming with ancient energy, and inside her, she looked like death in repose. Pale skin stretched over lean muscle, hair matted against her scalp, eyes closed in something more profound than sleep. The scanner confirmed the impossible, heartbeat steady, vital signs stable. Human. "Kill it," hissed the pilot, a feathered insectoid named Vika. "Accord protocol. No bounty if she's dead," Hrax replied, voice low. He pressed his hand to the control pad and froze. "She's waking." Her eyes opened, gray, with a coldness deeper than vacuum. She sat up without hesitation, like someone not groggy from cryo but returning from war. Hrax took a step back, gun half raised. "You understand me?" She looked around slowly, as if mapping the room with soldier's precision. Then she stood, muscles coiled beneath a faded jumpsuit that bore the ancient emblem of the Terran Vanguard. Her voice was hoarse but unmistakable. "Where am I?" No one answered. She took a breath that sounded like a blade being drawn. "Who won?" That broke the silence. Vika hissed and raised a plasma rifle. "Back in the pod, human." The woman turned her head slightly, studying the weapon like it was a toy. Then she moved. In the time it took Vika to blink, the rifle was in the human's hands, and Vika was on the floor, her limb appendages twitching. The woman held the weapon like she was born with it, its alien interface adapting instantly to her touch. "I see," she said. "The Accord still rules." Hrax tried diplomacy. "We didn't mean harm. We're scavengers. Just salvaging what?" "I was buried for a reason," she said, almost to herself. "Who gave the order?" "The Accord High Command," he answered too quickly. "They said humanity was too dangerous. You nearly destroyed the stars." She blinked once. "So they finished the job." Hrax tried to back away. She didn't stop him. She didn't need to. Instead, she moved to the ship's central console. Somehow, it still worked. Her fingers danced over keys written in a language the galaxy had tried to erase. She accessed star maps, communication logs, data caches. What she saw made her jaw tighten. "Earth is gone," she said. "Not even listed in charts. Mars, Titan, Europa, all labeled as neutralized sectors." She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She simply stood straighter, as though grief had forged steel down her spine. Hrax watched her with a mix of awe and fear, realizing too late that they hadn't discovered a relic. They disturbed a weapon. "You're one of them," he said slowly. "The Vanguard. The last line." "I was." Her gaze locked on him, and something ancient flickered behind her expression. "Now I'm the only line." She took Vika's data slate and began to gather schematics, Accord signal frequencies, known base locations, everything the scavengers had hoarded over decades. Hrax didn't stop her. Couldn't. "What are you planning?" he asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted the answer. She paused, then said, "I plan to remember." "Then I plan to make them remember me." He shuddered. She left the scavengers alive, though none of them would ever forget her. Within hours, she'd repaired her stasis ship, cannibalized systems from the Velix Mara, and vanished into uncharted space. No beacon. No trace. Just a message left in their mainframe, encrypted in a tongue no modern AI could fully purge. To the Accord, you failed. I remember. By the time the scavengers tried to report it, their ship's long-range comms were fried. Every system linked to the Accord flickered, then died. A virus, elegant and brutal, now nested in their core. It had a name.
Ash.
And across the stars, in the gilded towers of the Accord, alarms began to sound for the first time in a century. The freighter Val Trinaxis drifted through the Omarion belt, shielded by dust storms and old diplomatic encryption codes. Officially, it transported mining equipment to a neutral moon. Unofficially, it carried 20 metric tons of antimatter warheads, remnants of pre-Accord conflicts that were meant to be dismantled. But things that were meant to be rarely were. Ash stood alone on the bridge. The crew lay unconscious in the storage hold, sedated but alive. She had slipped aboard as a whisper of radiation, rewritten the freighter's environmental codes, and locked down its navigation systems before anyone noticed. The AI that once governed the ship now served her, reborn under a repurposed human construct she called Lazarus. It spoke sparingly, efficiently, its voice edged with synthetic calm. Navigation adjusted. Trajectory locked to Kale Station. 74 minutes until arrival. Ash nodded. She didn't waste words. Her gaze was fixed on a display mapping the station's internal layout. Kale was no ordinary depot. It was a classified Accord facility, known for manufacturing psychological suppression tech, the kind once tested on early human captives during the Purge. She had found references buried in the Velix Mara's fractured logs, half erased by Accord scrubs. But half was enough. She began suiting up. Armor assembled from scavenged Accord alloys, reinforced with human-era nano-eve plating. Her weapons were hand-built, a pulse rifle calibrated to melt through personal shields and an electrosphere made from a deconstructed stasis engine. She looked nothing like the woman who had once fought for Earth's defense under the Terran vanguard. She looked like its ghost. Lazarus interrupted her thoughts. Probability of Accord military response within 2 hours of station breach, 96%. Then we finish in one, she said. When Val Trinaxis arrived, no docking clearance was requested. It rammed through the defense shield and embedded itself into Kale Station's outer hull like a spear. Inside, alarms wailed. Accord officers scattered like ants beneath a collapsing boot. She emerged from the breach in silence, her rifle sweeping the corridors with surgical calm. Automated defense turrets failed to recognize her biosignature. The Accord had expunged human data from their threat archives. In their arrogance, they had made her invisible. She moved, without mercy. Security drones fell in sparks. Officers armed with neural lances never had the chance to scream. She wasn't killing indiscriminately, only those who had overseen the tech labs. She bypassed civilians, non-combatants, and those too young to know the weight of genocide. But she made sure every camera remained online. Every scream, every execution, every word she uttered was recorded and broadcasted across open Accord channels. This is Ash of Soul. I am not your myth. I am your reminder. She reached the core lab in 18 minutes. The lead scientist, a tall, gelatinous Arvathian named Kelrek, huddled beneath a desk, tentacles quivering. She grabbed him by his translator node and yanked him upright. These machines, she said, pointing to rows of memory-leached chairs. You used them on human children. Kelrek stammered. We were told they were prisoners of war. The Accord had protocols. No protocols justify erasing someone's mind while they scream. She activated one of the chairs. Its blue glow flickered weakly. Kelrek whimpered. I'm not going to kill you, she said, stepping back. I want you to live with what I restore. She uploaded the raw footage from the lab's archives, stored in spite of Accord bans, labeled classified for educational use. Footage of broken minds. Screaming faces. Children taken apart one neuron at a time. She set it all free on the galactic web. Then she left. By the time the Accord fleet arrived, Kale Station was silent. No deaths beyond the labs. No structural damage aside from the docked freighter's remains. But the psychological toll was immediate and irreversible. The footage spread like wildfire. No encryption could stop it. It played in pirate bars, diplomatic briefings, and school halls. Accord Command tried to deny it. They failed. She struck again 2 weeks later, this time on Adrami's Prime, a political stronghold. No shots fired. Instead, she hacked the central monument's holosculpture and replaced its grand narrative with a human lullaby, one passed through generations before the extinction. It played on loop for 30 hours before anyone could override it. The galaxy began to change. Quietly at first. Some called her a terrorist. Others called her justice. She became a legend, whispered in the upper tiers of Accord government as a strategic crisis, and worshipped on the slum worlds as a revenant of balance. What she didn't expect was a message. It arrived encoded through Lazarus, laced in an old human cipher so obscure only someone from her century would recognize it. If you're alive, then so are we. Coordinates attached. Come alone. Ash stared at the message. Her heart, conditioned for revenge, stuttered against the unfamiliar rhythm of hope. Lazarus flickered. Do you wish to engage? She closed her eyes. For the first time since her awakening, she hesitated. Then she whispered, plot the course. She slipped through the docking bay doors as though she belonged, the stolen Accord insignia on her uniform flickering under the harsh lights. Around her, the grand halls of Helix Bastion thrummed with bureaucratic certainty, advisors debating quashed rebellions, generals reviewing memorial plaques to fallen conquerors. None recognized the woman in their midst. Ash paused in the central atrium, its vaulted ceiling carved with the treaties that had condemned her kind. Dust motes drifted in the shafts of starlight from the observation dome, as if history itself had settled into this place and refused to move. She drew a slow breath, remembering faces lost, worlds razed, promises broken. Every treaty had been a veil for genocide. Footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, pulse rifle leveled at the approaching procession, the Accord High Council, robes flowing, eyes wide with startled dread. At their center stood Magistrate Velos, the architect of Earth's eradication, trembling in the weight of his own hubris. You cannot be here, Velos croaked, voice hollow as the packed stones he once smashed. We have unchallenged authority. She lowered the rifle by inches, the iron whisper of authority in her voice. You had it once. You squandered it on fear and lies. Counselor Drex, the spymaster who orchestrated the mind erasures, spat. You're a myth. A child's fable come to life. Her eyes burned. I'm the future you feared. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a slim datapad, its screen alive with rolling footage, smoke-choked colonies, children begging for water, images long buried under Accord censorship. Every atrocity, every tortured confession, streamed in a relentless testament. Gasps and stutters met her words. Velos lunged forward. Delete that. You've broken every treaty. A treaty requires 2 willing parties, Ash interrupted. You signed ours in blood. She tapped the pad, sending the files into every Accord terminal, beaming them to warships in orbit, classrooms on distant moons, public squares in liberated systems. Screens across the bastion flickered and turned, the Council's stoic facades dissolving under the weight of truth. Security forces hesitated, conflicting orders paralyzing them. Outside, the fortress shutters crashed shut, sealed by AIs now loyal to Ash's command. She stepped through the avalanche of revelations toward Velos, standing the same height as his deceit. You begged mercy from nothing but your own arrogance. Now you will live with what you created. Drex sneered. Kill her. Purge the human abomination. Ash regarded him as one might observe a dying insect. She raised the rifle, but did not fire. Instead, she disengaged the safety and set it on his desk. I am not your executioner. She turned again, walking past stunned officials as though on a pilgrimage. Justice is no swift blade. It is a mirror. You will see yourselves in every eye that remembers, in every child who learns, in every world you shattered that refuses to forget. Behind her, the council chamber doors slammed. Their screams went unheard over the roar of a revolution unfurling. In the lower decks, workers smashed open supply caches. Prisoners released themselves from cells. The battered remnants of Accord police raised banners of truce. At the observation dome, Ash paused one last time. Stars glittered against void, silent witnesses to her wrath and her mercy. She placed a hand on the glass, cold metal beneath her fingertips reminding her of all she had lost and all she had reclaimed. Then she walked away. Her footsteps echoed through corridors that would never forget her passage. And somewhere, concealed within the fortress's core, her final act of defiance took shape. The Helix Bastion's weapons array powered down, its data vaults purged of propaganda, its archives open to the galaxy. No walls could contain the truth any longer. On the station's main comm channel, her voice resonated one last time. The Accord falls by its own hand. Remember this day, not as the end, but as the promise of a new beginning. She vanished into the service tunnels, leaving behind a bastion on its knees and a galaxy waking to its own memory. And in the silence that followed, the universe exhaled, uncertain whether to mourn or to celebrate, and eager to discover what would come next.